The Liberals here under Peter Dutton do seem to have learned their lesson. You know, you've got to fight for your values or you die. The Conservatives in Britain, maybe not so much. I mean, utter turmoil there. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Yeah, he's really more the sort of go with the flow kind of bureaucrat, you know, that you sort of the Liberal left here. He's now been given an absolute blast after sacking Suella Braverman as his Home Secretary on Monday after she refused his request to not accuse police of going soft on pro-Palestinian protests, which she promptly did. She said they do go soft, and she called those protests hate fests. In response to her sacking, Braverman has sent Sunak a 2-page letter saying he'd broken his promises to her for her support in his becoming Prime Minister to get tough on stopping the boats of illegal immigrants. And she said he was also weak on hate marches as well, just like Anthony Albanese, she could have said. And she added, I have become hoarse, urging you to consider legislation to ban the hate marches and help stem the rising tide of racism, intimidation and terrorist glorification threatening community cohesion. I regret to say that your response has been uncertain, weak and lacking in the qualities of leadership this country needs. As on so many other issues, you've sought to put off tough decisions in order to minimise political risk to yourself. How familiar is that to us in Australia? Joining me from London is Patrick Christie, star presenter for GB News. Patrick, great to catch up with you. Is that really what this is all about? Sunak being weak, or and Braverman sort of, you know, not being obedient?
Well, essentially, yes, although the problem is for Rishi Sunak is that Suella Braverman has been right about a heck of a lot of stuff. She was right about the incoming, as she put it, hurricane of people coming, not just to Britain, but to Europe and then into America as well. She was right about the United Nations having to change its definition of what a refugee is, unless we want to lose our culture and our way of life forever. She was right about hate marches. That's been evidenced again on the street. And the far-right presence that was here behind me at the weekend was not here because Suella Braverman told them to be here. She didn't. They were here because they were either just intent on causing trouble anyway, because that's the kind of people that some of them are, or they felt incredibly let down by weeks and weeks and weeks of hearing chants for jihad on the streets, etc. So that's why they turned up. There's no doubt about it. Suella Braverman went rogue. She did release an article in the Times that was not sanctioned, and she was becoming increasingly more difficult to actually handle. But Rishi Sunak does stand accused of essentially lying to the nation, because he is saying every single time he opens his mouth, I want to stop the boats. And Suella Braverman is saying, we signed a contract in order for me to back you to become Prime Minister. You have reneged on that contract. You are lying to the nation, and you haven't got the bottle to lead the country.
And do you think she's, you know, saying something that chimes with the voters?
Well, I mean, we're not seeing that much being done by ways of practical steps to actually do things like curb illegal immigration. He's doing a little bit in the Channel, and boat crossings are down about 20%. Most of that, we believe, though, is weather-related. But later today, we are going to have a bombshell Supreme Court judgment relating to our Rwanda deportation scheme, OK, which is supposedly going to get people off to be processed in that African nation. Now, Suella's sacking letter, she revealed that that Rishi Sunak does not want to leave the ECHR, the European Convention of Human Rights, the European Court of Human Rights. Now, if they lose that hearing today, which they may well do, the only way to really get those Rwanda flights off the ground is to swerve that foreign court. Who has Rishi Sunak replaced Suella Braverman with? Well, James Cleverly, the new Home Secretary, who doesn't want to leave the foreign court. So it looks as though Suella is right when she says Rishi Sunak's heart isn't really in it.
See, this doesn't strike me as the actions of a party, you know, the fact that she's out for wanting all this, doesn't strike me as the actions of a party that is pleasing the kind of voters that gave the Conservatives their surprise win under Boris Johnson, working class people in traditional Labor seats, usually many of them in the north of England. I don't know that this is the party they voted for.
Yeah, well, it's not, and that is a massive problem. We did some exclusive polling last night on my show on GB News, and in the north of England, just 1% of people 1% of people said that they felt as though the Conservative Party stood for their values OK? And of Conservative voters, so voters who voted Conservative at the last general election, that landslide victory for Boris Johnson, just 31% of those say that they will vote Conservative at the next election. So just 31% of people who voted for them last time round. They have lost their red wall, and by bringing David Cameron back, they're trying to shore up the southern seats, that blue wall, the poshos down south. Well, that's not worked either, because apparently only 4 of them are in favour. So there we go.
It sounds so much like what the Liberals, we call the Liberal wets, or the others call them falsely the moderates. They're actually left-wing Liberals. We're trying here with no success. They're now out of government almost everywhere. So really, what a disaster.